My mother-in-law found out I was pregnant before I did and revealed it to the family. I made sure she faced the consequences. What could possibly be worse than someone ruining your pregnancy reveal? How about them announcing your pregnancy to the entire family before you even knew for sure yourself? It sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? Well, it happened to me. And let me just say this, my revenge ended up being more intense than the worst morning sickness. It all began a few weeks ago, on what should have been one of the happiest mornings of my life. I stood in the bathroom, staring at the pregnancy test in my shaking hand, 2 pink lines. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. After 5 years of trying, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It almost felt too good to be true. I was frozen for a moment, still trying to process what this meant. Then I found my voice, though it came out a little shaky. "Alex," I called out, my voice trembling with nerves and hope. "Can you come here?" I heard his footsteps echoing down the hallway. A second later, he appeared in the doorway, a concerned look on his face. "What is it, Izzy?" he asked, eyes scanning my face for clues. I turned to face him, holding up the pregnancy test. Tears had already started to fill my eyes. My hands were trembling slightly. "I think we're pregnant," I whispered. His eyes widened in disbelief. His expression shifted instantly from concern to shock, then to pure joy. In 2 quick steps, he was across the room and wrapping me in his arms. "Oh my God, we're having a baby?" I nodded against his chest, and suddenly the tears came freely. I laughed and cried at the same time, overwhelmed by the mix of emotion. We stayed like that for a few seconds, holding on to each other, letting it sink in. Then I gently pulled away, wiping my face. "We should confirm with the doctor before we tell anyone," I said softly. "I don't want to get our hopes up if something's wrong." "Of course," Alex said, nodding. He reached up and wiped a tear from my cheek. "But Isabella, I have a good feeling about this. This is our time." That afternoon, we sat together in the waiting room at Dr. Patel's office. The room was strangely quiet, almost too quiet. I fidgeted in my chair, unable to sit still. I kept picking at my nails, a nervous habit I thought I'd left behind years ago. Alex sat next to me and gently placed his hand over mine. His touch grounded me. "Hey," he said softly, "whatever happens, we're in this together, okay?" I looked at him and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. No. I just want this so badly." Just then, a nurse appeared in the doorway with a clipboard in hand. She called out, "Mrs. Isabella?" We stood up quickly, still holding hands, and followed her down the hallway into the examination room. Dr. Patel greeted us with a warm smile as she walked in, glancing at my chart. Her presence was calm and comforting. "So," she said, "you think you might be pregnant?" I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. The home test was positive, but Dr. Patel's eyes crinkled with kindness as she smiled. "Well, let's find out for sure, shall we?" The next several minutes were a blur. Blood samples, a few routine questions, and instructions about what to expect. My mind was racing the entire time. Finally, Dr. Patel looked up from her notes and gave us a reassuring smile. "We'll send the official results by mail," she said. On the drive home, the sun was beginning to set, casting a soft golden glow through the windshield. I stared out the window, thinking about everything that had happened in the last few hours. Alex glanced at me. "Are you sure you want to wait to tell everyone?" he asked. "My mom's going to be over the moon." I sighed as I pictured my mother-in-law's reaction. Pauline always meant well, at least in her own way. But she had a habit of crossing lines she shouldn't. She wasn't the kind of person who waited to be invited into other people's moments. She just barged right in. "Let's just keep it between us for now," I said, turning to Alex. "I want to savor this moment, just the 2 of us. We can tell everyone at Sunday dinner next week, once the confirmation mail arrives." Alex gave my hand a gentle squeeze and smiled. "Whatever you want, love. This is your show." I leaned back in my seat, a peaceful smile spreading across my face. For once, everything felt just right. It was a rare moment of happiness we had waited so long to feel. In that quiet drive home with Alex by my side and our future beginning to take shape, I believed we were finally getting the start we'd hoped for. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined, was how quickly that moment of joy would be taken from us, all because Pauline didn't know how to mind her own business. The following Sunday arrived, and I pulled up in front of Pauline's house. I glanced down at my blouse, brushing away a crease and smoothing the fabric. A small smile tugged at my lips as I thought about the little secret growing inside me, still unspoken, still ours. My heart beat faster with nervous excitement. "Ready?" Alex asked, turning off the engine. I nodded. There were butterflies in my stomach, but they were the good kind. The kind that came with keeping something special close for just a little while longer. We stepped out of the car and walked up the familiar stone path to the front door, hand in hand. As Alex reached for the doorknob, the door suddenly burst open before he could even touch it. "There they are!" Pauline's voice rang out, full of excitement. Her face lit up with a smile so wide it practically beamed. Come in, I froze. From the very first step inside, something felt off. The living room was decorated from wall to wall with glittery pink and blue streamers. Balloons floated in bunches around the room. A huge banner stretched across the curtain rod. Bold letters shouting, "Congratulations, Mommy and Daddy!" I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. Every single member of Alex's family was there, crowded into the room, smiling at us like they already knew. I opened my mouth to speak. What? But Pauline didn't let me finish. She rushed toward me and pulled me into one of her signature bone-crushing hugs. "Oh, sweetie," she said, her voice bubbling over with joy. "I'm so happy. For you both. A baby on board. Can you believe it?" I stepped back, my head spinning, trying to make sense of what was happening. The decorations, the people, the banner. How did she know? How did you find out? I asked, my voice low and shaky. Pauline's eyes sparkled with pride. She smiled like she had just pulled off the most thoughtful surprise in the world. The letter from Dr. Patel's office, of course. It came in the mail. When I saw it in my mailbox, I just couldn't help myself. And then I had to tell everyone the good news. Everything around me seemed to stop. The noise, the decorations, the smiling faces, it all faded into the background as her words echoed in my mind. The letter, her mailbox. My blood ran cold. She had opened our mail. I could barely think straight as the realization set in. The letter wasn't supposed to go to her. It was meant for us, for me and Alex. It was supposed to be part of our private moment, our news to share when we were ready. But now, everyone knew because of her. You see, after moving back from out of state, Alex and I had stayed with his mother for a few months while we looked for our own place. Eventually, we found a small house just 2 blocks away. But during the move, something must have gotten mixed up with our mailing address. A simple clerical error, but one that Pauline clearly took as an invitation to keep checking our mail. And that was all it took for her to insert herself into the most personal, precious moment of our lives. She didn't wait. She didn't ask. She didn't even think. She just opened it, read it, and told everyone. Right then, surrounded by streamers and smiling faces, the happiness I had held so closely slipped through my fingers like sand. And deep down, I knew this wasn't going to end with just an apology. Not this time. "Mom," Alex said, his voice sharp and serious. "You opened our mail?" Pauline looked surprised, almost confused by the question. "Well, yes, I did. That was it. I couldn't hold back any longer." "How dare you?" I shouted, anger rising in my chest like a wave. "What gave you the right to invade our privacy like that?" She took a step back, clearly not expecting this reaction. Her eyes were wide and her expression flustered. I was just excited," she stammered. You thought wrong," Alex interrupted, his voice firm. He moved beside me and placed an arm protectively around my shoulders. "Mom, this is completely unacceptable." Pauline tried to defend herself, her hands gesturing around the room toward the colorful decorations and smiling guests. "But I threw you a party we didn't ask for," I snapped back, my voice cracked with emotion. Anger, betrayal, disappointment. "You stole our moment, Pauline. You took away our chance to share our news, our way." I looked around the room, at the banner, the streamers, the people watching us with awkward expressions. I was surrounded by family, yet I felt more isolated than ever. My joy had been hijacked, my privacy ignored, and standing in front of me was the woman responsible, my mother-in-law, who always managed to make everything about herself. In that moment, I knew one thing with certainty. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Later that night, after we had made a quick excuse and left the party early, I found myself sitting on the edge of our bed. I stared blankly at the wall, my thoughts heavy and tangled. The pain from earlier hadn't faded, it had only settled deeper. "Izzy?" Alex's voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Talk to me, please." I turned to look at him, and the tears I'd been holding back all evening finally spilled down my cheeks. "She had no right, Alex," I said, my voice shaking. "No right at all." He came over and sat beside me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. His warmth comforted me, but it couldn't erase the sting. "I know, love. I'm so sorry." I leaned into him for a moment, then pulled away and stood up. I began pacing the room, my emotions bubbling over. "This isn't the first time she's done something like this," I said, my voice rising. "Do you remember when she opened our bank statement? Or that time she read the letter from your ex? She always crosses the line." Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I remember," he said quietly. I hoped she'd learned her lesson. I stopped pacing and turned to face him, frustration etched on my face. "Well, she clearly hasn't. And I'm done, Alex. I'm just done." He looked up at me. "What do you want to do, Izzy?" I stood there for a moment, thinking. And then, slowly, a plan started to form. It came together in my mind piece by piece, clear, deliberate, and bold. I want to teach her a lesson she'll never forget. The next day, I started making phone calls. It wasn't easy. It took some explaining, some favors, and yes, a bit of money from our savings. But I was determined. I needed her to understand the weight of what she had done. I needed her to feel the consequences. A week later, everything was in place. Alex and I sat in our car, parked just across the street from Pauline's house, stared out the windshield, watching the driveway with calm intensity. Then, right on time, a police cruiser pulled up in front of her house. "Are you sure about this?" Alex asked, his brow creased with worry as he glanced at me. I nodded slowly, my jaw set and my voice steady. She needs to understand that actions have consequences, and for once I wasn't going to let her walk away without facing them. We sat in the car, quietly watching from across the street as the plan unfolded. My heart was beating a little faster than usual, but I stayed calm. I knew this needed to happen. Alex sat beside me, his expression unreadable as he stared at his mother's house. Right on cue, the officer stepped out of his car and walked toward Pauline's front door. He wasn't a real police officer. He was an old friend of mine, an actor, someone I trusted to pull this off with just the right balance of authority and drama. He wore the uniform well, and the seriousness in his voice was convincing. He knocked firmly on the door. We watched as Pauline answered. Even from where I sat, I could see the moment it hit her. Her face went pale the second she saw him. She looked confused, maybe even a little scared, as the officer began to speak. "Ma'am," he said, loud enough for us to hear from the car, "I'm here to inform you that you're being sued for violation of federal privacy laws. Opening someone else's mail is a serious offense," Pauline gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Then came the shriek, sharp, loud, and full of disbelief. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I was just trying to help. Isabella, Alexander, I know they're behind this." I took a deep breath and opened the car door. Alex followed, me without a word. We walked across the street together, side by side. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and uncomfortable. "You're right, Pauline," I said calmly as we approached her front steps. "We are behind this, because you left us no choice." She turned to us, her expression twisting through a series of emotions. Shock, then anger, then something like betrayal. Her voice dropped to a harsh whisper, full of outrage. "How dare you?" she hissed. "After everything I've done for you. I threw you a party, for God's sake." "A party we didn't ask for," I snapped back, my voice steady but firm. "You ruined our special moment, Pauline. You stole our thunder." Her eyes widened, and she threw her hands in the air. "I was excited," she cried out. "I'm going to be a grandmother, and you will be," Alex said, stepping in now, his voice calm but serious. "But Mom, you have to understand, what you did was wrong. It wasn't just inconsiderate, it was illegal and unfair." Pauline looked back and forth between us and the officer, her face full of confusion and panic. Then, all of a sudden, she clutched her chest dramatically, staggering backward. "My heart!" she cried. "I think I'm having an attack." I stared at her, completely unmoved. "Save the theatrics, Pauline," I said flatly. "The officer isn't real. This was all a setup. We did it to show you how serious we are." Pauline stopped mid-stagger and stood up straighter, the act slipping from her face. Her eyes narrowed as the realization sank in. "A setup?" she asked, voice dripping with disbelief. "You tricked me? Like you tricked us?" I shot back immediately. "This ends now, Pauline." I looked her straight in the eye, my voice calm but unshakable. "No more opening our mail, no more snooping, no more crossing boundaries," I said. "If we get even one more piece of opened mail, just one, I'll file a real lawsuit. Do you understand?" There was silence, a long, heavy silence. Pauline didn't say anything at first. She stood there on her front porch, staring at us, clearly trying to process everything. Finally, she gave a small nod. Her voice was quiet and shaky when she spoke. "I understand. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you." Something in her face shifted. She looked different, less defiant, more regretful. I watched her closely, and for the first time in a long while, I saw something that resembled real remorse. I softened just a little, but not completely. The damage had already been done. "I know you didn't mean to hurt us," I said, my voice still firm. "But your intentions don't change the outcome. You need to respect our privacy, Pauline. That's not a request. It's a requirement. Can you do that?" She nodded again. This time, it wasn't weak or uncertain. It was steady. "I can," she said. "I will. I promise." I gave her a slight nod. Then Alex and I turned around and walked back to our car in silence. As we reached the sidewalk, he reached out and gently squeezed my hand. "Do you think it worked?" he asked, glancing at me with a mix of hope and hesitation. I looked over my shoulder, just in time to see Pauline quietly closing her front door. I turned back to Alex and gave a small shrug. "I hope so," I said. "But if not, well, next time I won't be bluffing." We got into the car, and as I settled into my seat, I placed a hand on my still flat stomach. My thoughts were no longer on Pauline, or the stunt we had pulled, or even the drama that had unfolded. They were on the life growing inside me. I didn't know if Pauline would ever truly learn to respect boundaries. I didn't know if she would stop trying to insert herself into every part of our lives. Maybe she would change. Maybe she wouldn't. But one thing I did know, deep down, with complete certainty, was this. I would do whatever it took to protect my family, especially the smallest, most vulnerable one we hadn't even met yet. And from that day on, everything changed.